G'day everyone, just gone out and bought myself this Ryobi 18 volt cordless chainsaw. It's a HP model and it has the 12-inch bar. It is the biggest chainsaw I could get in the 18 volt range and it cost me $289 for the tool only. Today we're going to test it all out. We'll have a look at all of its specs and features and we'll cut some wood with it and see just what it can do. Okay, I bought this with the intention of just taking it away with us in the back of the car so we could collect a little bit of firewood and maybe clear some trees off the road if we need to. I don't think it's made for heavy duty work where we're going to be collecting a trailer load of firewood to take home with us, cutting wood all day. Normally I would take something a little bit like this. Now this is my other chainsaw, it's a 16-inch bar and of course it is a 2-stroke petrol. Obviously the drawback is, one, it's very heavy, and two, it smells of petrol all the time. We have to carry petrol with us and 2-stroke oil, and it's just not practical to carry in the back of a car. With something like this, it weighs very little, it's a little bit more compact, and of course, we don't need petrol. We're carrying the same batteries we'd probably carry with us anyway. So for me, it was a very good practical choice to chuck in the back of the car just to collect a little bit of firewood and clear some trees if we need to. Okay, if we take a quick look around the saw, of course, we have the 12-inch bar, which is a toolless chain tensioning system where we can loosen or tension the chain using this white ring and then lock it off with this black section here, which is very different to the old style where we would actually need tools to do that. We have a mechanical lock here for if we get kickback, and that also isolates the chainsaw. So once we unlock that, like that, we can operate it again. And as you can hear, there's a little bit of sound there. It's 96 LWA compared to the 114 that this one has, but it's by no means that loud. I've used it without earmuffs. Of course, I'd recommend you always wear earmuffs and protection when you can. We have a tank here for all of our chain and bar oil, and I'm currently using a 6 amp hour battery, which does add to the weight a little bit, but nothing too much to make it a particularly heavy saw. Now on the box here, Ryobi says we can cut up to 200mm logs. We're definitely going to go a little bit bigger than that. We have a 305mm bar, so I definitely think we can cut much bigger than that. It also says we can do 100 cuts at 35mm with a fully charged 4 amp hour battery. Now that's not very big at all, but 100 cuts is pretty impressive. We're of course going to be using a 6 amp hour battery, so I expect to be cutting either much bigger stuff or much larger quantities of small stuff. So let's get out there and see what it can do. Okay, so the type of wood we're cutting here, it's just anything that's naturally fallen down. We don't want to actually cut any trees down. We're not here to do that. We want it to have been sitting around for a little while, so it's a little bit drier, makes it harder for the saw to cut it, but it also is better for burning in the campfire as well. So we've been looking for stuff just like here, what you can see. It cuts it pretty well. This stuff is fairly dry. It's around about that 200mm mark, which is what Ryobi recommend is a maximum size for this saw. And as you can see, it's cutting through it pretty well. We're not pushing hard on the saw here. We're just letting the brand new chain, which is very nice, just cut through, let the weight of this chainsaw cut the wood, and it's cutting it really quite well. We've got the 6 amp hour battery, like we said, so it's got quite a bit of grunt, and it's just cutting through this wood fairly straightforward. Very happy with the way it was cutting this particular wood. Now the saw itself, if you do lean on it quite hard, it will overload and stop. It's designed to stop to save itself and you. We really don't need to lean on it hard at all. It's got a brand new chain, and of course we can sharpen the chain and replace it as well. And we just let the chain do the cutting. It's got a very small biting section at the front of the chainsaw here. You can see in the petrol chainsaw it has a much chunkier section that bites into the wood. This one is sort of plastic and it's much smaller. It's okay, but it just doesn't bite into the wood the way the petrol one does. But for the most part, just get into the bottom section of the wood there and let the front of the chain slowly drop down until it's parallel, and then we take another bite at it, and it works just fine doing it that way. And we did try something a little bit bigger, and it's a much harder wood. This one, you can see it's a much redder color, and it was much harder to cut. This is around about the full 300mm of the bar, and it cut it fairly well, to be honest, but it does take quite a bit longer, and the chainsaw did load up a bit more cutting this particular section of wood. But for the most part, if you're just collecting the standard wood that I was cutting before, perfectly fine. If you're going to collect a bit of this, you'll probably find your battery is going to die much quicker. But it certainly did the job, no problem at all. Just took a little bit longer. And we cut some smaller stuff too. This is about 150 millimeters. It's a different species of wood again, and of course it cut just fine. This one's been laying around quite a while. It was a little bit dry and starting to rot in places, but no issue. Cut this stuff perfect. I definitely think this chainsaw was made to cut this sort of size wood. And of course trimming limbs and trees around your garden would be absolutely perfect for that. Still using the same battery here. We were on that 6 amp hour battery for a very long time. We did swap over to the 5 amp hour battery a little bit later. And just for scientific purposes here, you can see I'm cutting this piece of wood here. I'm using the 2.5 amp hour battery, which isn't recommended for this particular saw. It's a very small battery, and as you can see, the saw, we're cutting exactly the same as we were before, no extra pressure or anything like that. It does tend to keep stopping. We have to keep restarting the chainsaw. I definitely think 2.5 amp hour battery is not big enough for this. So make sure we've got a 4 amp hour battery or bigger, because it does continue to stop. We will get through the wood, but it keeps stopping. It's a bit too much load for the 2.5 amps. Well, as you can see there, we went through heaps and heaps of different logs and cut heaps of different things. And I was very impressed with it. I actually really like the chainsaw. It's excellent to store in the back of the car, really easy to move around. Not that expensive for $289 either. We did go through 2 batteries, a 6 amp hour and a 5, but I definitely think that's quite reasonable considering what we did with it. It was pretty good on the oil too, and it doesn't leak any. I've had chainsaws that definitely just leak bar oil everywhere all the time. This one's really good, really tidy, and very happy with it. Other than that, thank you very much for watching.